Our next one is titled, My son was given a medicine that I wasn't told about by his father. I'm a first-time mum and I'm so lost. My son, who's 6 months old, has been staying with his father while he's in town. I'm the primary caretaker. It's his first week with him alone, but he will be with his mum and sister, who is also a mum. Our son has been teething lately, but his doctor has said that Tylenol is the safest thing he can take for the pain. I repeatedly told him to make sure that he has Tylenol only. I was just called on FaceTime, but him saying saying he's feeling much better because he gave him a different medicine, and my heart sunk and I felt sick to my stomach. I freaked out and he took it the wrong way and was saying that he got it because his mom and sister told him, and they know more than me. I am spiraling because even his mom and sister are saying I'm insane for freaking out. I just don't know anymore. They're making me feel bad for freaking out because he's fine and feels better only because of this medicine, but they just completely disrespected what I had said. He was saying his mom and sister know more than me. It hurts so much because he's never been to a doctor's appointment, so how could he possibly know? I think about what would have happened if it did affect our son negatively. Now, I would argue that the fundamental, if you take this situation at face value, you would say, okay, the kid is sick and he's hanging out with his dad. His dad has other people around who've also parented children, so they have some kind of experience with how to deal with kids when they're sick, presumably. And his dad makes a parental decision to give him some kind of medicine to help him with his sickness. Now, if this happened in the context of my marriage, I would 100% trust that my husband has a very good idea of what types of medicines I'm okay with and which ones I'm not, and he would not choose a medicine that he thought would be somehow harmful to our child. And I would also trust that he would do his due diligence in terms of making sure that whatever he's giving our son is going to be good for him. These are kind of fundamental things that you have to trust when someone else is the parent of your child as well, right? It cannot be that I'm the sole person capable of making decisions for our son's health, because technically we're both parents and his dad has equal right to make decisions for his health as I do. I think that's a pretty fundamental thing. The fact of the matter in this case is that they are broken up. They're not actually together. He's not her husband. And presumably, whatever caused that, or for whatever reason that happened, I would argue that this is a source of conflict because she does not trust his father to look after him. And that's a pretty major problem. I don't know how you would manage to co-parent with someone else if you had zero trust in his father. Now, she says she freaks out. She says that his primary reason for it was like, yeah, my mom said it was okay, and so it's fine. And this is the argument that he gave in terms of his mom and his sister know better than his mother is not a good argument, and that I assume it will always land in the wrong way. It will always be taken the wrong way because what you're saying is that you don't trust a mother to make good decisions. But maybe, just maybe, that is the fundamental problem here. The problem is that neither party trusts the other one to make decent decisions for the kid. And then, of course, you freak out about relatively minor things. Now, obviously, it depends on what types of medicine was given. And yes, okay, I guess the dad could have poisoned their child. I don't think that that's very likely. I think the majority of parents do look up what types of things they're giving their kids before they just give them stuff. But if that's how you're dealing with it, I say this honestly as someone who's pretty anti-medicine, generally speaking, who would much rather allow my child and his immune system to try and fight off whatever sickness it is quite naturally. I'm very, very cautious about what types of chemicals he is in contact with and so on. And I really say this as someone, even with all of those caveats, this is just not a normal response for someone whose dad makes a decision, because I would always treat it as like, okay, well, he's also the dad, right? So I can't dictate 100% of everything that his dad does with him. That's what I find a little bit strange about this one. I think her freak out is a little bit over the top. I think that how he defended himself in terms of saying, yeah, but my mom said it was okay. That's not a good defense. I would have much rather gone with the defense of, hey, look, I looked into the medicine that I was giving him. I made sure, like I checked with a couple of other people to make sure that it was okay. I also read the leaflet inside to make sure that it's okay. And as far as like there's no problems. Like, yes, I understand that the doctor said he can only have Tylenol, but I think what I gave him was perfectly reasonable and perfectly fine. And I'm capable of making these decisions for my kid. Thank you. That's how I would have responded if I were him. And then I think it sounds a little bit less disrespectful and a little bit less dismissive than if you say, yeah, I don't care what you said, but my mom said X. That's not a good response. So OP, if I were you, I would probably try and fundamentally work on this issue of trust within this co-parenting relationship that you have going on, and try to just understand why it is you feel that you cannot trust him to make decisions, to make good decisions for your son's health, and why he seems like he doesn't trust you when you say whatever it is you say, why he doesn't take that quite so seriously. And then that's the foundation that I would try to work on before you freak out about things like medicines, etc. This is me. I'm pretty much the only person that says this. Everyone else is like, hey, that's rude and obnoxious. You know your baby best. There is this attitude that people seem to have, and yes, of course, okay, she's the primary caretaker, so she does know the baby best, but he still is dad, you know, like he's still the dad. You cannot get rid of that. You can't just erase him from the equation, especially not when you're trying to co-parent, right? You have to just accept that on some level, he's allowed to make decisions too. Next person says, how much could his mom know if she didn't teach him the common courtesy of respecting the mother of his child? Sorry, this just irks me to no end when people don't follow the primary caregiver's instructions. I'm so sorry you went through that. You have every right to be upset. I think that there is this attitude where the expectation is that people can't think for themselves. And so if you give them rules and guidelines, then they just have to follow them like mindless morons without having a brain and going, okay, does this actually make sense for the particular circumstance and the particular situation in which we find ourselves? And if it doesn't make sense for that situation, then I would always be much happier for the parent to decide, hey, you know what, this just doesn't make sense in this particular context. I need to do something else. And they can think by themselves and make that decision is so much better than just me saying, hey, okay, this is my rule. Everyone should follow it. I don't care what reasons you have or what comes up. It's just the rules stand. That's not a good attitude, and that's not a good mindset to get into when you're trying to parent. This one's really funny. It's just, one person asks her what was given. She posts a picture of it that I've blocked because I don't want the medicine and I didn't want to talk about that. But she says, hey, one person replies to that picture and says, that's a great medicine. It's completely homeopathic. You don't have to worry. If it helped him, it's a lot better than Tylenol. And that's kind of the irony of this whole thread. For all that she freaked out and for all that she was like, hey, I know best, in the end, it seems like the dad may have made a better decision for the kid and his health than what she told him to do. Another person also replies, that's perfectly safe. I understand that you're freaking out. I would be too. I can't imagine my baby going to stay with someone else for a week and not being in control. However, this is just the deal when you're co-parenting with someone you aren't with. It is his child as much as it is yours. And while your baby is with the dad, there are going to be a lot of decisions you don't have control over that perhaps you wouldn't make. As long as your baby is safe, I recommend some good therapy for learning how to cope with the extremely difficult emotional roller coaster that co-parenting will be. And that's a great piece of advice because they really comes out just how extreme this reaction is and how it's very clear that it's from the context of co-parenting that there's a problem here, that it's this loss of control over the child and the decisions that impact the child that is freaking her out. That's the source of the freak out, so much more than the actual medicine that he was given and whether that medicine was dangerous or not. And that's what really fundamentally makes it irrational. That's why it's an emotional, irrational response that is not helpful for the kids, not helpful for the dad, and it's not helpful for the relationships that she has and the way that she's interacting with the people around her. Another person replies to this and says, hey, I get it. They're being disrespectful of your wishes. They aren't respecting your boundaries and authority as primary caregiver. With that said, that isn't medicine. It's a homeopathic medicine, in quotes. It is herbs, etc., not medicine that could cause issues. Also, just FYI, but if baby is over 6 months, infant ibuprofen is proven to be more effective as well as longer lasting. I would try approaching the conversation again, set boundaries. If you had asked me first, you would have included me in the decision and respected me as a child's mother, since I already stated specifically specifically what the baby could have. And I still think that this is really over the top. If I had a co-parenting relationship with the father of my child, then I would still hope that he can make unilateral decisions when it's necessary, without having to call me up every minute and be like, hey, I want to give him this. What do you think? I want to do that. What do you think? I think eventually I'd be like, okay, look, you're a grown adult man. You should be able to make decisions by yourself. I shouldn't have to approve everything. Yeah, and I find it also a little bit funny when there are people here who try to give some amount of advice in terms of, hey, you should give this other type of medicine instead. Like, maybe you should be a little bit cautious before you say things like that. Next person says, hey, I totally understand why you're upset. I'm sure it's hard to co-parent. However, he is a parent just like you. He has a right to give the baby medicine. He should tell you what the baby is given, just like you should do the same. Being mean and getting mad about everything is going to make co-parenting even more stressful for you, and especially for your child. And so I'm not the only person who picked up on the co-parenting problem. As you can see, it's definitely one of the sad realities of life, in my opinion, in terms of, hey, when relationships break down and then kids are always caught in this battle between mother and father, and trying to find a way to navigate that relationship and still make it a really healthy, happy place for your child is already very difficult. And then add to that a set of irrational emotional reactions, an intense amount of fear and anxiety about your child and their health, and a desire for control that's way beyond what is reasonable and normal to have in this situation. And suddenly everything falls apart a lot more. So if you are in this type of situation, I would really, really try and work on trust and try to make sure that, hey, you actually trust the father to make good decisions. If you have reason to believe that he cannot make good decisions, then freaking out is fair enough. But otherwise, if he's proven himself to be a normal person who can make reasonable decisions by himself, then there's no reason to be like, I cannot believe that he did this, and to take that so personally.